Additional sanctions on Iran, are these the last available sanctions that the U.S. can place on Tehran?
No, not at all. In fact, I think over the past year of the maximum pressure campaign that this administration has executed, we have shown that we will continue to put pressure on the Iranian regime until they come to the negotiating table to negotiate a new and better deal. Listen, there's been a lot of critics of the U.S. administration for the past year for withdrawing from the JCPOA. The problem that we've seen is even while we were in the JCPOA, that deal did not cover Iran's malign activity in the region. Being in the JCPOA did not stop Iran from doing things like planning assassination plots in Europe. They have not stopped Iran from funding Hezbollah, from funding the Houthis. So what we're seeking here is a peaceful resolution to a malign actor in the region, to a revolutionary regime who says openly that they would like to destroy our ally Israel and that they continue to torment Saudi Arabia and the rest of our Gulf Arab allies. And what we're hoping for is to bring the international community together to say no to Iran.
Well, you have an opportunity next week with the UN General Assembly to bring together that coalition. And yet there, as you mentioned, a lot of skeptics, and here domestically in the Democratic Party, but also abroad, about the U.S. taking the lead on trying to get Iran to denuclearize. So how do you form that coalition next week?
So you've seen a few things happen over the past week. You've seen more members, including the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, who have announced that they're going to be a part of our maritime security initiative. That's important. We also have Australia, the Prime Minister, who is here right now, who's a part of that and very important initiative. So we're bringing the international community around protecting freedom of navigation, freedom of the seas, which, Iran obviously seeks to exploit. We also have the French, who have announced that they're sending a team in to the site in Saudi Arabia, which was hit by these cruise missiles, which will also help us in the investigation process. So we saw a very stark contrast yesterday in the Middle East. I was with Secretary Pompeo in Saudi Arabia and in UAE. And while we were doing our investigation, while we were bringing allies together, while we were working on an international response, we saw the Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif threatening all-out war, threatening to fight to the last American soldier. That's not what this administration is working on. Instead, we're working to bring the international community together to tell Iran you cannot take 60% of Saudi's oil supply off the market. We won't stand for this malign behavior.
Well, what if the investigation concludes, and there's obviously many folks are pointing to Iran already, and Democrats, Republicans pointing to Iran. If the investigation concludes that Iran was in fact behind this, does it warrant some type of military or drone response from the United States against Iran?
I think the president has indicated that all options are on the table, and he continues to meet with his national security team to explore these options. Again, what we're looking for is to build an international coalition to respond to Iran's aggressive activity. We know, as the Secretary Mike Pompeo has said, it is physically impossible for the Houthis to have conducted this attack. Your viewers can go to Google Maps and can see for themselves where Yemen stands, where the attacks were in Saudi. We know that the attacks came from the northwest, and the Houthis just don't have the capability to do it. They have no evidence because they didn't do it. They're lying.
Does the president need congressional approval in order to respond via some type of drone attack? Because that's the question that I hear, even from Democrats who are blaming Iran, that they still want to hear from the administration on Capitol Hill if there's a response.
Sure, and I think that the administration is working closely with the Congress, and we will continue to do so. Again, while all options are on the table, what you've seen today and what you've seen this week is a diplomatic response led by Secretary Mike Pompeo. You saw Steve Mnuchin of the Treasury issue more sanctions today. You saw us fly to the region. We got on a plane right away to go speak to the leaders of Saudi Arabia who were attacked. And as obviously the Secretary said, this was an act of war. So here at the State Department, we are pushing a diplomatic solution. We are pushing a peaceful solution. And you will see at the UN General Assembly next week in New York, Secretary Pompeo continue to push for the international community to come together to continue and try to stop and prevent Iran from continuing to terrorize the region.
So next week, all eyes on Iran. Will we hear any critical message from the administration about the UN as a whole, as a body as itself?
Well, I think you've heard, various messages of reform coming from the president and coming from Secretary Pompeo. At the State Department, we believe in effective multilateralism. We believe in a good use of American taxpayer money and holding UN institutions accountable who are not performing as expected. And so that is something that we will continue to push. These are hard-paying American taxpayer dollars, and we expect the UN to be good stewards of that money.